What's up, everyone? Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. Anton Anderson here, co-founder of Elite Resource Team. And yeah, we got a number of people already on with us. So at this point, you should be able to see my camera, hear my audio, and also see my welcome slide. It's April 17th. This is our team-based model group Q&A call. Perfect. Kate, thank you for confirming. And anyone else on the line want to say good afternoon? Let me know where you're calling in from. Tax season just wrapped up. We just had our Elite Advisor Academy last week. And I've seen all types of activity in the Facebook group. Chris, what's up? Calling in from Minnesota. Brian, howdy from Plano, Texas. Awesome. Brian, great to have you here. Wonderful. Jack, great to have you as well. Jim, congrats on a successful academy. St. Louis, Missouri, wonderful, great to have you. Great meeting you last week too. Good, good. And now I see a number of comments, confirmation, everything's coming through loud and clear. So very good. Well, great to have everybody here today. Not really any big updates on our side. We have one or two things I'll touch on, and let's jump right into some Q&A. So go ahead and start typing your questions into the Q&A box there, the chat box. And I will start tackling those one at a time. Perfect, I already see one or two coming through. Before I get into the updates on our side, make sure I said Christy Schatzberg, thanks for joining us. Many of you attend Tuesday morning's call where Christy hosts with Stephen Burgess. Christy's here with me today. And the only thing I wanted to cover, let's see here, is making sure everybody knows I did shoot out an email earlier this week with information on the Elite Tax Planning Academy. So now that we got the Elite Advisor Academy, last week's event behind us, we're shifting gears here to the Elite Tax Planning Academy. Super excited about that. I think we've done them for the last 5 years or so. So at least 11 or 12 of these. I'm really excited to dump a ton of energy into this one. We have some fairly incredible speakers already confirmed, both on the accounting side and on the advisor side. And I think some 70 advisors either confirmed registration or at least have requested registration. So we're looking forward to seeing a number of you then. And let me go ahead and post that link in case you want more information on that. There you go. And what is it, June 4th and 5th in San Diego. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some questions here. Murray. Hey, Anton, if it were you and you have been on the radio, if you've been on radio silence for the last 2 months with your CPAs, who you have yet to actually kick off reviewing potential clients for, would you do now this week? What would you do now this week, and what would you say? My only contact over this period has been the tax season survival kit. Yeah, really good question. So my first thing would have been exactly what you mentioned you did here, which is make sure during that 2-month period, I dropped off at least one tax season survival kit to each of the CPAs that I had begun a relationship with. Even if I hadn't and I was just brand new to the training, I definitely would have used that tax season survival kit as a first touch for any new potential CPA relationships. So that's one thing. It looks like you've already done that with the accountants. So a couple comments. One is next year with these accountants that ideally, obviously by this point, you would have engaged with them. You know, next year at this time, you should have 2 or 3 CPA partners doing business with, and there shouldn't be radio silence for 2 months. Ideally, when the relationships are built right, you're meeting at least every other week, still during tax season. We have a lot of advisors and CPAs that are meeting every week, even during tax season, because that's when a lot of the, I'll call it low-hanging fruit, you know, a lot of the business is done because clients are feeling the pain of the taxes they just paid. Therefore, the CPA should be, you know, really making sure that the clients are taking action during that time period. But let's fast forward here. We are in April 17th. Tax season just ended. You have a couple relationships that have started. You haven't engaged. You haven't done cases with them yet. What should you do now? I would suggest a couple things. One is, any time between now and the end of this week to early next week, I would drop off another something, and I would call it a, congrats, you survived tax season kit. And it doesn't need to be over the top, but maybe a bottle of wine and a short little letter saying, you made it through another tax season. I look forward to connecting with you soon to talk about how we can make sure that next year you're not working as much and your revenues increased, or something like that. Enjoy this bottle of wine on me. And then I'd make sure I connected with them on LinkedIn, friend request them on Facebook, okay? And then as early as probably Monday, so if it was me, I'd make sure I've already LinkedIn connected with them, Facebook friend requested, I drop off another something between now and the end of business Friday or Monday. And then I would start reaching out on Monday to schedule your next meeting. So it depends obviously where you're at in the process with each of them. But basically you get right back on track with the flow chart. So tax season kind of throws us for a little bit of a loop, but if we take a look at week 1 and we go down to that video, the flow chart training, basically now that tax season is over, we want to jump right back in where we left off with the tax season, or prior to tax season starting really. And hopefully you can see my screen here. But yeah, let's see, so we got meeting number 1 leads to meeting number 2. We got the scripts and the talking tool that leads you through that process. Once they verbally engage, we're going to set up a 3rd meeting where we're going to go through the CIQ, Facebook group, the PIN, ideally use the engagement agreement by the end of meeting number 2, and then start discussing the clients and the cases. So those are the action steps that I would take. Is there anything else? I mean, simultaneously, starting early next week, I would start loading the funnel back up with new CPA introductions and relationships too. You basically want to keep the activity going on new introductions until you have 7 to 9 CPAs that say, yes, I love this model. I love working with you. I like your energy. Let's move forward. Let's engage. Because ultimately those 7 to 9 that verbally say yes, it's really going to shuffle down to 3 that really take action and become good partners for you. So in addition, Murray, to these CPAs that you met with prior to tax season and dropping off a congrats, you survived, I would just, again, start looking at the top 9 ways to generate the CPA introductions in week 5 and start building up some additional CPA introductions. Warm professional relationships, warm client relationships, new tax season survival kit, or, since tax season just ended, call it tax season tax congratulations kit, and just keep that funnel of new potential CPAs loaded. And yep, perfect. Okay, cool. All right, next question. Robert, is there a way to have all CPA logins for CIQs rolled up into my advisor CIQ login? No, there's not. For each, so you're going to have, ultimately, you're going to have, multiple logins into the CIQ account. You're going to have your own login that you should be using with your own clients and your own prospects. That's like priority number 1. Get comfortable with the process. If you can't use the CIQ for any other type of reasons, no problem. Just get familiar with the specialists, and again, get familiar with the flow chart. So you're going to have one CIQ login for yourself, Robert, and then for each new partnership, each new CPA partner you have, you're going to have a separate login, separate username, and a separate password. And that way it keeps all the CIQs, completely separate. So ultimately, if you have 3 CPA partners, you really don't want those CIQs to all end up in one account, because the last thing you want surefire way to ruin a relationship is to confuse CPAs clients for one another. Okay. All right. I apologize if I mispronounce your name. Lupe, I think. Let's see, Anton, I'm into week 5 of the video. Shall I start practicing the training in connection or contacting CPAs now, or should I get to complete all materials through week 9 and I rehearse well before I start reaching out to CPAs? No, I'd say the first suggestion there, which would be start reaching out to CPAs, especially now that tax season just ended. And in fact, let me just go ahead and show you. So you're in week 5. That is, you're probably like halfway through the meat and potatoes of the training on reaching out to the CPAs, right? So you've got week 4, all about identifying and contacting the CPA and the scripts, the email templates, etc. to do that. Week 5 now, we have the meeting scripts and the talking tool to lead them through that process, engage with them. And then, so that's week 5. And then week 6, now we have the monetize and the maintain the CPA relationship. Okay. And then once we get through that, that really is the entire flow chart process. So when we get into week 7, 8, and 9, those you really, they're supporting documentation. There's a lot of information about different types of planning strategies, but you don't need to start at the top of week 7 or week 8 or week 9 and work your way all the way through it before you start having CPA meetings. These are really just supporting documentation and videos that are available to you when questions come up. In week 7 here, you can see it's basically a massive library of all different types of planning strategies, from captive insurance, charitable LLCs. We've got cost segregation, conservation easements, cost remediation, ESOPs, defined benefit plans, you know, value-based billing, long-term care, monetized installment sales. I mean, it's just a massive resource for you when you see different types of strategies come up that maybe you have not been exposed to or just want to brush up your education on. So I'd say really start making your list of CPAs and start reaching out to them. Okay, you're welcome. Let me know if there's any other questions on that. What other questions do we have today? Questions on CPA or accountant relationships, CPA cases or your own cases with clients, different types of strategies, anything on the training portal? Good. Okay, so I see a question here on the Elite CPA video, where to use that. Yeah, and Murray, this isn't a bad question. So with the Elite CPA video, if anyone on the line hasn't watched it, I'd suggest you take a look at it. It is, what is it, about 15, 16 minutes long. We made it actually with the feedback of a number of CPAs that have been working with advisors in our training for a number of years. I think it does a good job of telling the story, and it's in the flow chart here as kind of a supporting document to meeting number 1. So if you had some really good meetings prior to tax season and you're kind of in a situation like Murray where, you know, they were excited about it, but then they went quiet for 2 months for tax season. Ideally, we have another meeting scheduled sometime in the next 2 weeks. You could also consider sending them the elitecpavideo.com, and I'll pull that up for anybody who's not familiar with it. There you go. Just pause that. So it's designed to kind of speak to an accountant and kind of the pain points they would experience. I think it does, like I said, I think it does a good job summarizing the model. And Murray, you could use this if you had a CPA that reaches back out to you and kind of says, you know, can you remind me what we discussed? Sure, no problem. We have a meeting set up on the 25th. You know, we talked a little bit about your business and how you're trying to move from really reactive hour-based planning to being more proactive and holistic with your clients. You know, and if you have a few minutes prior to our meeting, then feel free to watch this short video we put together, something like that. So feel free to use that video like that. Good. Yeah, so can I talk about the engagement letter for a second? Somehow I missed that one. No problem at all. Yeah, so it's called engagement agreement. It's not really a legally binding document. It's not meant to be that per se. If you ever have a question, you hear me mention something on a Q&A call like this, or you see something mentioned in the Facebook community and you want to find it, what you can do is just use this little search function here in the top left, click that. And let's say, for example, I want to look for the engagement agreement. Type that in and hit the search function, and it will find anywhere in the portal where that is located. So there it is, week 8, miscellaneous documents, hit view, and it will take you to that accountant engagement agreement here. Click on that, and here's the PDF version of that. So what you'll see is, again, it's 2 pages long, and it basically just lays out your expectations of them, kind of the value proposition of the model, what you're helping them do, their expectations of you, what they're going to receive in terms of the accountant training portal, the accountant Facebook group, the client information questionnaire. There's no cost to them for any of these things. They're signing it, you're signing it. We do have an updated version of this that we discussed last week at the event, actually. We'll probably upload that by the end of this week or early next week, but it does go into also the revenue sharing and how fees are going to be split, or referral fees, commissions, those kind of things. So we'll walk you through that conversation as well. I'll build a new training video to kind of help you with that process too. But again, what it does is it just gives a little bit of context around the relationship. And then I would suggest having them sign that. And then that way, if in a month from now, they verbally say, yep, I'm going to create my list of the top 10 clients that we're going to be working on first. And they say that this week, and then next week they say it again, and the following week they say it, and they haven't done it. It's like, remember that engagement agreement? I have a copy here. Some of the things we agreed to was to take action, to follow up on the commitments we're making to one another. So what you're doing is it's putting you in a position of leadership in the relationship to, in essence, hold them accountable for following through on their agreements with you. It's really, I would strongly encourage everybody to use this or a version of this. Some of the key differences between the relationships that work really well between advisors and accountants and the ones that don't: weekly meetings or meetings every other week at least, some type of engagement agreement that lays out the relationship, the expectations of one another, some discussion on revenue, and then a pre-joint client meeting. And we have that for you in week 8, but that lays out exactly what the meeting is going to be between you and the accountant and their client, what you're going to discuss, how you're going to introduce one another, what strategies are going to be discussed and what strategies aren't, what the ideal outcome of the meeting is. An advisor that can consistently do those 3 things, consistent meetings, engagement agreement, joint client meeting, the relationship will be so much more profitable, so much stronger with the accountant. I would say those are probably 3 of the biggest, hacks, cheat codes for the relationship to focus on. All right. William, is there a website/address that a CPA can open that explains how the elite team-based model works for them instead of how it works for the advisor? Yeah, probably the closest thing would be the elitecpavideo.com. Well, I can tell you for a fact that's the closest thing. Our company, we don't, I mean, we used to for a number of years worked directly with CPAs, and that's where Ken and I really built this model off of those experiences. But now we're not out marketing to CPAs. We don't work directly with CPAs. You know, our clients are you as the advisor, the insurance agent. And so if they are looking at Elite Resource Team, they're just going to see material that's focused for the advisors and the insurance agents. So the best thing that you can do is twofold. One, if you need something, you can use the elitecpavideo.com. But even more important than that is building the relationship with you individually, because we really don't want that relationship. You know, we want you to have that relationship. And it's kind of like if you're out marketing and positioning yourself with somebody at Merrill Lynch, at Northwestern Mutual, at State Farm, at, you know, something like this, I've seen CPAs do this where they will say, oh, you know, Northwestern Mutual dropped by and they came with this. It's like, who? I'm pretty sure that individual's name is not Northwestern Mutual. So, and we don't want them to say, Elite Resource Team came by, or the team-based model came. We want them to say, William came by, right? Or Anthony Anderson came by, because the relationship is with you as the individual. It's not with a company. It's with a human being. Okay. Daniel, you hit that all super fast. Please repeat. Specifically, please repeat the 3 key meetings agenda for regular meetings. Okay, yeah, no problem. And I will say one thing on Daniel's point. If there's anything that I cover that you feel like I either talked about way too quickly, I didn't go, or it went right over your head, and you can always go into week 8 in webinar recordings. If you click on that, now granted we had an event last week, so we might be a couple days behind, but nope, look at that, Michael's on the ball. Yeah, all you need to do is to go into week 8 webinar recordings, and then you'll see the date of the webinar, the group Q&A call. If it's a CIQ case study review call, it will say that, and you click on that and you can access the recording. So if there's anything from today's recording that, you know, I don't cover or I don't have time to repeat, log into week 8, go watch that recording, and you'll see that language there. But back to Daniel's question, specifically asking about the meetings. So let's take a look again at that flow chart, okay? So here in the second page of the flow chart is where we get into, we've engaged the relationship with the CPA. Now we are setting up, again, ideally weekly meetings. It might take a little while for the CPA to see enough value in that half an hour to hour together where they're willing to commit weekly. But once they do, like I just said, I mean, we've got dozens of advisors that had weekly meetings up until last Friday. Like last Friday, we were hearing about weekly meetings with advisors and accountants, even though it was February, what was it, 12th, 13th? So once you get enough, you know, activity and the relationship is truly developed, ideally both you and them see so much value in them, you're not going to miss them. But initially out the door, there's not going to be that much activity, and you at least want them to commit to every other week. So what are you going over during those meetings? We're going over potential clients. We're going over open cases. We're going over the status of those. We're talking about what's the next step and who's responsible for doing it and when is it going to be done by. We're talking about education, you know, so if you're in week 7 and you watch a new video on something you didn't know about previously, let's say it's cost remediation or cost segregation, or, you know, anything like this, and you don't have cases to go over, you can watch this video together, take notes on it. You know, it's really, it's what it is doing is two things. One is it's investing in the relationship, consistently investing in the relationship, building trust, building credibility, building comfort, and it's also holding everybody accountable. So what activity is getting done, what needs to get done, when does it need to be done by? Otherwise, without doing this, we spend 12 months spinning our wheels and in essence just end up 12 months from now in a pretty similar position as we were, a year ago. At the event last week, I told a story about one of the first CPA partnerships I had. His first name was John. We had spent 18 months just doing nothing, basically. I mean, we were having meetings sporadically. We didn't really have any client communication. We kind of both agreed that we wanted to work together, but I didn't have any real good leadership skills on how to direct those meetings and conversations. And he wasn't totally comfortable with me, so he never really brought me up. So the point is, we don't want to spend 18 months just getting together for lunch and meeting at a CPA's office. That does nobody any good, you or the clients or the CPAs. So that was the regular meetings. And then Daniel, the other two things that I touched on that are really important and probably separate the extremely profitable and rewarding CPA relationships from the ones that don't. So is the regular meetings, the engagement agreement, so some type of agreement in writing that talks about your role and their role, and the two of you have agreed and signed that, talks about revenue sharing and how you're going to share revenue on cases. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing was the pre-joint client meeting, and that's in week 8 as well. Again, if I say something and you're not familiar with it, just use this little search function. Whoop. What happened? Oh, there we go. Should be enough to find it. It's not finding a tag word. I'll show you right where it is. Week 8, miscellaneous documents. And then right here, pre-joint, there's a hyphen between it. Pre-joint client meeting. So that's the third major thing. Use that before every meeting you have between you and the CPA and the client. And even if the CPA is electing not to be in that meeting, maybe it's a smaller client or it's a simpler situation, still fill this out with them so they know exactly what is going to be done, what's going to be discussed. The main thing is we need to communicate to the CPA, which is why we have the flow chart, that we're not just flying by the seat of our pants. We're not just trying to sell something to their client. We have a process. We will lead them through the process, and everything is mapped out for them, one step at a time. And that's one of the huge things that will separate you from, other advisors or agents that have approached them or they've tried to work with, or even some that they've worked with in the, just more the old referral model. Having this type of clearly mapped out process and communicating that to them is extremely valuable. William Anson, I was just thinking that the first thing I do is Google a company to find out about how it works. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from on that. You're referring to, is there a website for the CPAs to look at to find out about how the team-based model works for them? Yeah, again, so if they Google like team-based model, it's not a company, it's a concept, it's a model. So they're really not going to find that much on that. What if they Google, on the other hand, I would say you want to have something that is consistent with the dialogue you're having with them. The easiest thing to update is your LinkedIn profile and your Facebook. So we cover that in week 4 under top ways to generate CPA introductions. One of those is LinkedIn. So take a look at that. I give you an example title to use, an example profile, picture, how to explain your expertise, and all that stuff. And that's why you're connecting with them on LinkedIn. Same thing with Facebook. If you are, most of you are using Facebook, because that's probably where you saw originally some ad or some post from us. You know, it's 2019. We can't just use Facebook and say stuff that we don't expect people to see. Mark Zuckerberg has done a very good job at making Facebook extremely relevant. So if people start Googling you, they can see any public posts. Therefore, I wouldn't put anything on Facebook that I wouldn't feel comfortable saying to a client or to a CPA. And that includes things about politics or, you know, whatever it is. And then the other thing, though, I will say on this, and if you've been on a lot of these group Q&A calls, you've probably heard me say this. I think people tend to get way too caught up on business cards, letterhead, websites. The main thing is you're having a conversation with somebody, you're finding out about their business, and then you're really asking yourself, can I, and what I've learned with the team-based model, help this accountant make positive changes in their business and in their life? If the answer is yes, then your priority is communicating that to them. And that's all scripted out, and that's why we have the talking tool. And I have a dozen examples of advisors over the last 5 years that had no website, or had a website and it was like their old website from 7 years ago, but they still have very profitable CPA relationships. And they even, some of them use like an AOL or a Gmail, Outlook, what's it called? AOL, Hotmail email address. Because the reality is, I think we talked about this in the training, but the reality is, you know, people don't work with you because you have a good website or because your website sells them. At least not in a true partnership like this. People work with you because you had a conversation with them that communicated that whoever you are and whatever you do can significantly help that individual improve their problems. Like if you look at our website, it's fine, but it's pretty outdated. I don't even think it talks at all about CPA relationships, build a massively successful financial services practice, elite resource team, like one thing about build niche partnerships. You know, so people don't look at this and they're like, oh, wow, I'm going to pay elite resource team to train me because everything they have on their website is so convincing. You know, it's because we probably spoke to them in a webinar and then had a follow-up phone call. So, yeah, I've never seen websites. Now, if you're working more transactional and you don't really have a unique competitive advantage, then the website becomes more important. But if you're working in more of a blue ocean space, it's not as important. Tesla had a year-long waiting list for their cars with zero marketing. It's because it's such a unique product. All right, let's see here. Daniel, would be great if you created a FAQ from each recording transcript. Would be a productivity hack, time saver. So ironically, one of the things we're working on right now is every video we have, every Q&A call we do, creating a PDF transcript of that and also a MP3 file. So somebody could download and listen to it without, you know, watching the video or doing a keyword search on a PDF. So good suggestion. It is being worked on. George, at what meeting should engagement agreement be discussed? The end of meeting number 2, George. That's the ideal point. Let's look at this flow chart here. Okay. So right here, CPA meeting number 2, we recap meeting number 1, recap the video if you sent them the video after meeting number 1. and decide on ideally the first couple clients, use the engagement agreement right there. Jack, can I go over in my own words the revenue sharing with the CPA when they ask how they get paid? Yeah, so that one's not as scripted out because it really depends on the CPA. What I would say, I would, if they asked me, I'd say, great question, and yeah, I'm definitely want to talk about that. There's a number of different ways that we can work together and help you increase your revenue. It really depends on what you prefer. And then I would like to ask them, are they licensed already? If they are, why did they get licensed? Are they generating any revenue from that right now? If they are licensed, is sharing in commission important to them? Ideally, the best scenario is they are licensed and they want to share in commission, or they're not licensed, but they want to implement value-based billing. And then that can be equally as profitable for them. But those are really the only two that's going to change their practice, either getting licensed and sharing in commission or implementing value-based billing. And then there's a lot of other ways we can do them. We can, they can invoice us for consultation fees, for work that we did on joint clients. We can pay rent, and all of that is covered. If you take a look at week 7, there is a video, how CPAs are compensated in the model. Take a look at that video, and that goes over a number of different ways that CPAs can generate revenue, be compensated from the model. In terms of how to answer that question again, I would anticipate that coming up. I would actually bring it up if it hasn't, certainly by the end of the second meeting. And just let them know that there's a number of different ways that working together can generate revenue for them. It really depends on their preference, and walk through the different options for them. Jack is saying I'm breaking up a little bit. Let me know if anybody else is having any issues. A couple of people are saying no issues on their end, so I'll just keep rolling through. Jack, sorry about that. All right. Jay, I need to revisit the agreement. I have 2 CPAs I'm working with, one busy during tax season, the other going stale. She believes in tax planning, but isn't proactive at all. Has not sent any CIQs. Agreement reminder may help. Yeah, absolutely. Did you use the agreement, the engagement agreement with them already, Jay? And they've just gone kind of soft? Okay. Yeah, if you used it with them, they signed it, I would absolutely have that conversation with them. The other thing you can wrap up into that conversation, because it's very, very common of what you're describing, which is why, again, I'd suggest keep developing the CPA relationships until you have 7 to 9 that are in that category where they say, yes, I want to engage with you. Because ultimately, you're going to make the decision that some of them are excited, but they're scared. Some of them let themselves get too busy. Some of them were scared to say no to you. So they said yes. And now it's, a couple months later and they haven't done anything. So what you'll see is ultimately there will be 2 or 3, kind of that analogy of the cream rises to the top, that really are committed, excited. And when you get those, then you will see that it can happen very quickly where you have more business than you can handle, and you kind of have to ask them to slow it down a little bit. but I would absolutely revisit the engagement agreement that you signed with MJ. The other thing I would do is, if you didn't originally, use this for a second. Let me pull up my video, make sure I can. The other thing I would do is really make sure you are discussing with them what is their, we'll call this current situation. We'll call B kind of their desired situation. And you want to know this for every CPA that you're partnering with. If you're just looking for a couple referrals a year and you're going to work with 20 CPA, it's like, who cares? If you're truly investing in them and you want to help them change their practice, you want to change your practice, then you're truly forming that type of partnership. So revisit this with them. And it's kind of like a, hey, remember when we met? So you said they've gone cold over tax season. So let's say you met back in November, December, January. We talked about your current situation. We talked about how during tax season you're working 80 hours a week, how your revenue hasn't increased for the last 4 years. We talked about how you want to be doing more value-based billing, how you want to be more proactive and holistic with your clients. We talked about working together and working in the team-based model. Team-based model, right? So that's where they are, where they're trying to get to. You want to help them understand that, you are that partnership or that bridge that moves them from where they are to where they're trying to get to, and then talk to them about what was their motivation to work together. I'm sick of having 700 clients that I charge $199 a tax return for, or $299 tax return for. I want to have 200 clients and do incredible work for them and charge $1,500 a year, $2,000 a year. So you want to talk about where they are, where they're trying to get to, revisit how you can help them get there by bringing more proactive, holistic planning to their clients, by working with them in more of a partnership approach, and working with your team of specialists, solving problems that they previously didn't even know existed or to ask about, and then kind of have a little bit of like a, are we still on the same page? Is this the purpose of us getting together and working with one another? Because if not, like if something's changed and you don't want to, don't want to work together, that's totally fine. Let's just agree to kind of go our own ways at this point. Let them get in the position where no, I'm still interested. I still do want to work with you. I'm tired, I'm tired. I've been working hard. I'm sorry, I've gotten really busy. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. But again, if we let ourselves get busy in a year from now, we're going to be having the same conversations. So we need to really get serious about this. The first thing we need to do is probably set up, I'm going to suggest weekly meetings. Every Friday at 1 o'clock, book me on your calendar. We'll have a 30-minute Zoom meeting to talk about the action we're taking, cases that are open, what needs to get done, what clients we're reaching out to, and then lead them from there. But that really is kind of your opportunity, Jay, to step into more of that leadership role. William, I dropped off some tax season survival kits to CPA firms that were surrounded by wealth management offices. Two were in the same office with the CPA. Would you consider them a next or worth following up? Completely worth following up. Completely worth following up. I wouldn't, even if they said on their website they do wealth management or insurance services or anything, never take anything like that for face value. The majority of the time, even if they shared the same office space, were on the same floor, even if they already have, most CPAs that have been around for more than a month or two, they're already going to have referral partners, financial advisors that they take care of that for me. Yeah, they do in the old sense of how you're describing, or, a client asks you about a wealth manager and you give them 3 business cards, or a client needs insurance and you give them a phone number and a name to call. That's not what you're interested in. You're interested in the new way, right, Brian? Nice comment there, man. Yeah. So I wouldn't for a second, Bill, make the assumption that just because they're surrounded by wealth managers or their offices, that they're not a good potential fit for you. Kirk Anton, can we talk about advisors who are doing well with this kind of cases and that they are writing case studies? Yeah, no problem. Ironically, I just saw one post this morning from Maryland. She's crushing it. She's got 2 really good CPA partners, maybe a third, and doing some and has closed some really good business. And in terms of like case studies, if you want to see reviews and stuff, I'll show you 2 different spots. If you want case studies just like on specialists and strategies, in week 8, we have this case studies tab. All of this is business that our advisors have closed with specialists, or if you want to see videos where advisors talk about really more like in-depth review of their cases, take a look at week 9 here. There's case studies, and you'll see some really good planning done here. A lot of the advisors that are a little bit more developed with us, we teach them how to charge planning fees in addition to the AUM, the insurance, and any other advanced planning that's being done. So you can see, $35,000 in planning fees, insurance, and AUM, $250,000 in planning fees, insurance, AUM, 1.2 target premium. So feel free to take a look at those, Kurt. It's all type of stuff there. Let's see. I had my assistant make a list of 50 CPAs. She noted many already indicated they do advanced tax planning and have business clients. I wonder if this is an indication of their ambition versus what they really do. Thoughts? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's definitely a positive, in my opinion, when a CPA is saying they do advanced tax planning and they have business clients. I would be more inclined to meet with them. Same thing if they say they do financial planning, they do estate planning, anything like that. I would always take it as a good thing. And I would never take it that they wouldn't benefit from a relationship with you, or that you couldn't help them take everything to the next level. So when you meet with that CPA, as you're going through those questions at the beginning of meeting number 1, I would weave that into the conversation. I'd say, I noticed on your website, just in preparing for this conversation today, that you mentioned you do a lot of advanced tax planning for business clients. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Super open-ended, vague question. Tell me a little bit more about that. Oh yeah, I do. We do all types of advanced planning for our business owner clients, and it really depends on the circumstance and what they need and blah blah blah. Okay, cool. So, what does advanced planning mean to you? Because obviously that's a pretty broad term, and ironically, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I'm just wondering, like, could you give me a couple of examples of what that means to you? So 95% of the time, advanced planning is things that it's not unique at all. It's just basically what clients would expect them to do. I suggest they create a SEP IRA. I help them hire their kids. I help them analyze their entity structure and decide if S Corp is better than the C Corp. I help them with the Augusta loophole, the more home mortgage deduction. I help them look at, and maybe there's like R&D tax credits or Section 199A. I mean, things that most CPAs are doing if they're working with business owners. And you don't even need to know what all of those mean. If they say something you don't know what it means, don't try to play it off. Just say, that's great, I'm not familiar with that. But let me ask you this. And then you could go in one of two directions. You could either say, so it sounds like you're doing some good planning for your business owner clients. I assume then in that case that none of these business owner clients, after all of your advanced planning is done, are still left paying more than $100,000 in federal income tax, right? And so you're going to quickly get them to say, well, I mean, no, I mean, there's, a lot of my bigger clients are still left paying 100,000 plus in tax. Oh, okay. So maybe there's more that could be done. Interesting. And then go like right on to the next question. And they're probably going to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. So what do you mean by that? Well, we work with a team of national specialists, and a lot of times we find that if somebody's paying 100,000 or more in taxes, that there's more that could have been done. But let me just understand a little bit more about your business. So I want to know, how did you start working with business owners? Do you have any specific niche within the business owner community? What's your ideal business owner client look like? If you were to say the biggest challenge you're facing right now in your business, what would that be? Okay. And I'm curious about this. I mean, it seems like you've done a really good job building a good practice so far. Where's this thing going? I mean, what does your practice look like in 12 months and in 24 months? What's the vision for the firm that you have? Right? Where are they right now? Where are they trying to go? What's the desired practice look like? That's it. Yeah, Jay, that's exactly what I was thinking. Weird thing is the CPA talks about the Elite Tax Planning Academy, but again, has done nothing. She even got rid of most of her 1040 clients. All right. Well, she's taking a little action. How is she replacing the revenue from the clients that she got rid of that do 1040s? Have you had that conversation yet? Weird, no idea. Gotta ask, my friend. Yep. Because if all she did is fire them or raise her prices or ship them elsewhere, after tax season, she's probably going to have a little bit of a realization that her revenue is dropping. So what we want to help them do is for every 2 or 3, C level and D level client they get rid of, find one new A level client. And you also got to make sure if she thinks she's coming to the Elite Tax Planning Academy, I mean, she's not coming on her own. She's only coming with you as your guest. So you hold that key. A CPA can't just reach out to us and register for the Elite Tax Planning Academy without being a guest of an advisor. So I would, yeah, she needs to know that. Definitely have that conversation. I'd encourage you to, again, sit down, have this conversation. You already know where she's trying to go. You just told me she got rid of a lot of her 1040 clients. That means she's trying to move more towards tax planning business owner clients. She's in Andrew Argue's program, so she's investing in herself. Sounds like a great relationship. You just have to kind of set out some ground rules in terms of consistently meeting, set your expectations on what she needs to do, what you need to do, you know, how the two of you are going to work together, and then start reaching out to clients. And I'd even set like a time frame. So let's say you get together next week. Let's say it's April 20th. Today's the 17th. Let's make it the 25th. I talked to her about everything we've discussed so far, and then say, listen, you know, from my perspective, I think there's a lot of potential synergy between our practices. And I think I really could help play a very important role moving you towards the vision you have for your practice. But, you know, I can't do that on my own. We have to work on this together. So let's come to an agreement on what the next step is. I would suggest, Jay, it's identifying 1 to 2 clients and reaching out proactively to those clients and getting them to complete the client information questionnaire. And you got to set a deadline for that. So like, when can you do that by? And have her say, well, I'm a little busy, I'm catching up. Okay, so how does May 7th, Friday, May 7th sound to you? And I don't even know if May 7th is a Friday, but just as an example, how's May 7th, Friday sound to you? Does that sound reasonable? Can you reach out to those 2 clients by then? Yes. Great. So let's set up a meeting, 3 o'clock on the 7th, just to touch base, make sure you reached out to the clients. If you need me to send you a template email for you to forward those clients with the CIQ, I can do that. In fact, you probably just want to do that anyways. And then you reach out to her, you have a call on, you know, May 7th at 3 p.m. and she doesn't do it. You say, listen, you know, we kind of already had this conversation. You committed to me that you were going to do it. You didn't. This isn't really fair. You're not holding up your end of the bargain. At this point, I don't think it's going to be appropriate for you to come to the Elite Tax Planning Academy with me. I'm really looking for an accountant that is truly going to, you know, work hand in hand with me in this. And it's probably better we just move on at this point. You can let her talk you back into it if you want at that point, but there's got to be a deadline. There's got to be some repercussions if she doesn't follow through. It's the same thing with you. Like, you know, you're not going to tell her you're going to do something and not follow through. Otherwise, she should cut the relationship off. Just 2 business owners having a conversation. Cool. Yeah, and if she needs the CIQ training or walk through it again, absolutely spend the time doing that with her. Make sure she's comfortable. Get her everything she needs on your end so she has no excuses. And then if she doesn't take action, she doesn't take action. And the other thing too is, you know, bring it back to the clients. Like, it might be uncomfortable for her, but unless the 2 of you are taking some action, you're not helping any clients. You're not helping her clients, you're not helping your clients, you're not helping mutual clients. And the goal is not just to learn a bunch of new stuff. The goal is to help her business, help your business, and help your mutual clients. What else? Really good questions. Anton, for opportunities for CPAs clients that is outside the scope of your services, am I the person that is responsible for identifying the specialists who will work with the client, make the introduction? Can you please walk me through the process and what it looks like? Yeah, no problem. So take a look at that flow chart again. So we'll say we're in the situation where Jay is, who is just asking that question, right? So we've got the CPA, they verbally committed, they just haven't taken action yet. So what we're trying to get them to do is to send out the first 1 to 2 CIQs to the client, get their clients to complete those come back in. We do an internal review of that information that the client submitted. Initially, if you want us to help you with that, every Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. we do that, or you can post any questions in the Facebook group. And that's the internal review that then leads to a discussion with the CPA to prioritize the top strategies. Then once you've identified the top strategies, that then leads to reaching out to the specialist. Do you need more information? Does the CPA need more information? We have all of the training videos in week 7. All of those training videos are also in the accountant portal, so they have access to all of that education. Once you've watched those videos, then you complete the pre-joint client meeting. Again, I talked about that earlier with the CPA. You invite the client to the meeting, whether or not you need the specialist involved in that, and then you engage or execute the solution. Obviously, very high level, just went over it super quickly. I do have a 20-minute training video on this flow chart so you can get more information on that, but specifically to your question, if you're new to the training, so right here, this internal review of the CIQ, or any type of fact pattern that you're using, obviously we need to gather the information. But once we've gathered the information, if you're new, you're not really sure if there's additional opportunities there, bring it to us. We'll review it on the Thursday afternoon call. Whether you're confident that there's more that shows up on the opportunity report of the CIQ, or you're not really sure, you just want us to review it and get kind of a second opinion, either way, we can help you do that. And then we will help you kind of identify the best specialist to reach out to and talk to first. Now, if you are already kind of humming in the program, you've used the CIQ, every time you use the CIQ, you're going to be emailed not only the Q&A, the questions and the answers that the client provided or the prospect, you will also be sent a copy of an opportunity report. That opportunity report will list from top to bottom strategies that potentially are appropriate for that client based on the information they provided. Then what you can do is look in week 8, and there is in week 8 a document called, in miscellaneous documents, contact information. Let's see. Specialist contact information. You open that up and what you'll see is all of the specialists listed, their names, their emails, their phone numbers, and you can at that point reach out directly to them. You can download that PDF, save it if you'd like, and you can reach out directly to them with any questions. You can send them a copy of the CIQ. You can send them an email summarizing the fact pattern. I think sticking to the flowchart is really the best way to go about it. So review that internally. If you're new and you want us to help you do that, we'll direct you to the best specialist to reach out to. Send them an email, set up a call, talk about the fact pattern, see what questions you have, then see what questions the CPA has. They will walk you through step by step what is needed in order to execute that strategy if it's outside of your area of expertise. Tell you exactly what documents they need, how long it will take them to review it. They will do, every specialist we have will do a free analysis for you. So they'll tell you exactly what would be involved in terms of the time, the documents they need. They'll tell you the cost, their fees, and they'll tell you what the savings to the client would be. So before the client has to make a decision, they can, well, even before that, before you or the CPA has to make a decision, you can look at the cost benefit, decide whether or not it's worth presenting to the client. Assuming it's worth presenting to the client can see cost benefit. Client can get on the phone with you and the specialist, or the CPA and you and the specialist, ask questions. There's going to be no fees until they decide to commit to move forward. Daniel, is Biz Equity a free business valuation? They have software that requires a subscription. So there's two different ways you could work. Well, actually, let me take a step back. There's two different valuation options from a business valuation perspective. One is if you have a big business owner and it's a serious valuation where you need, like, they're raising capital, you know, that's a pretty detailed valuation. And I would suggest we have one specialist that will do a specific valuation. It's going to be more expensive than the Biz Equity, but it's going to be very detailed and everything you would need. On the other hand, you have more of the biz equity platform, which is not to that degree of depth and review and substance, but it is very good for 90% of the situations. You know, things like we're funding a buy-sell agreement. Maybe it's a smaller company and we're bringing in a partner and we want to know how much they need to buy in for. You know, any type of thing like that. I think the biz equity is a good tool for that. So that's the two scenarios. If we're using the biz equity scenario, then you kind of have two options. You can go directly to them. You can do a subscription to use their software. We have a discount for you. If that's something you want to do, I wouldn't recommend everybody do that. I would only recommend it if you've got a passion around business valuations, working with business owners, talking about the valuation of their company, and you want to kind of wrap your arms around that and own that. Assuming that's not the majority of advisors, it is some, but it's not the majority. The other option is work with an advisor already in the training program that has that subscription and really has developed that expertise. There's a number of them. Michael Sims comes off the top of my mind because probably I just know that he's done the most, at least from my experience. So he has a subscription and he can do some joint casework with you if you don't want to, go through the process of getting your own subscription. Michael Sims, S-I-M-M-S. And anytime you have any question or that's ironic, you made a comment right there. Anytime you have any questions, or you hear a question from another advisor or anything like that, you can always find them in the Facebook group by searching, right? So if I started typing in, for example, Michael Sims, I could do that. There he is. Hover over his name. You can send him a private message just like that. Boom. Cool. And also, pretty much all of our specialists that are listed on the specialist contact sheet are also members of the Facebook group. So let's say, for example, you had a question on cost seg. What's a good question? Can a nonprofit do a cost seg on property they own? Can a nonprofit do cost seg? And then what I would do is I'd hit the @ sign and tag the specialist, which is in this situation, Joel Grushkin. So you'd say Joel Grushkin, hit enter like that. And then as soon as I hit post, Joel Grushkin will get notified that you just asked a question, tagged him in it. And this is by far the quickest way to get questions answered. So any of the specialists will answer those. All right. Been on for just over an hour or so. Any other questions? I'll do a last call for any questions. How fast do specialists usually respond to Facebook? Most, I will say, I see response rates within 24 hours, some even quicker within a couple hours, some immediately. I would say the caveat is obviously many of them travel and speak at events. So if it's something like that, or they're tied up in a meeting, it might be a day or so. But most of the relationships, well, I will say all of the specialist relationships, unless they're brand new to the community, we've been working with for years. Like Joel, we've known for 8 or 9 years. And many of them will say that our community, so everybody on this call, everybody in the Facebook group, represents such a large percent of their business that they prioritize advisors and working with Elite Resource Team above anyone else. I think Joel told us last time it was 35% of his entire company's business last year that we represented. There's been a couple specialists that have now worked, they work exclusively with Elite Resource Team. Michael Frost is an example of that. Ralph Nelson with advanced tax planning. Just because there's so much activity and business going on within the community that it's worth their while to just focus on our advisors. So it tends to be pretty quick. Oh, this is a good question. Okay. It seems we have to become the administrative assistant for the CPA within the context of the CPA team-based model, besides the services I can do for his or her clients, correct? No, I definitely wouldn't think about it like that, administrative assistant. I would see it more as a team where we've got a quarterback and we've got, we'll say, a wide receiver. There are responsibilities that both of those individuals are going to have on the team. And one is not more important per se than the other, but they're doing different tasks. If you find yourself in a relationship with a CPA where it feels like you're on uneven playing field, this is a big problem with a lot of CPA relationships. Because the way the industry has basically allowed CPAs to work. CPAs are by far the most sought after referral partnerships, not just from advisors and agents, but real estate agents, estate plan attorneys, tax attorneys, business brokers, property and casualty agents, payroll specialists. So, you know, unfortunately, because they're kind of the most sought after, because they're the most trusted advisor, the way that a lot of advisors have allowed the CPA relationship to develop is like this, where it's like the advisor is on a higher level than, the CPA is on a higher level than the advisor. And that's why we try to strip away the titles. We talk a lot about that in the training, right? To bring the CPA down, the advisor up to an even level playing field. And both individuals need to understand that it's not about one person being more important than the other. It's about working together to create that synergy on a level playing field. And again, if you find yourself in a relationship with a CPA where you feel like they're treating you like an administrative assistant or they're treating you like not an equal, you have to have the conversation. Listen, at the end of the day, remove licenses, remove titles. You're a business owner and I'm a business owner. We're two business owners. We have different skill sets, different experience. By working together, we create synergy and help one another. That's it. And if we don't, then there's no point in working together. But you can't have a scenario where one's up here and one's down here or vice versa. With that said, there are roles that you will play when you're working with the specialists that the CPA won't. For example, going back and forth with the specialists and the client, gathering the documents and the data, providing the information that they need. But it's not an administrative assistant role. It's just the role on the team that you're playing in that play. All right, cool. Robert, thanks, man. Great job last week. Anything else? Yeah, and Daniel, you're saying I would prefer to use an admin for some follow-up. Yeah, absolutely. It just depends on obviously what the role is. I mean, sorry, what the case is, how sophisticated and large the client situation is, how sensitive the information is. Yeah, but I mean, I'm all about outsourcing, delegating, you know, maximizing everybody's time and skill set. I would just caution you, Daniel, as you're building a new relationship with a CPA, just remember everything is leveraged. So it's like trading options, right? If you're just buying or selling a stock, you might lose 10% if you made a bad trade. If you're buying or selling and trading options, you could lose a lot more. CPA relationship is leverage. So if you have one case and your admin assistant messes something up, it's like you might upset one client. You upset a CPA, you just potentially blew 300 relationships with clients. So especially early on, I would just handle everything with super kit gloves. And the other reason is because ideally, once we get the relationships going, we're not working with their C-level clients, certainly their D-level clients. What we're doing is, again, ultimately, if you go out 12 to 24 months and we talk about what we want the CPA practice to look like, we want them to have less clients, but better clients. We want to outsource, delegate, or sell the C-level, D-level, F-level clients. B-level clients we want to bring up to A, and A-level we want A+. So what that means is the majority of the clients ultimately that we should be focusing on is really their best relationships, the ones that they don't want to risk losing. More moving pieces, more revenue, more businesses. The more valuable the relationship, the more important it is for them to deliver more proactive, holistic, comprehensive planning. And the more holistic, comprehensive, proactive planning we can deliver, the more opportunity there is, more revenue we can generate. So like I had a scenario last week where an advisor, I was talking to the advisor, and he's got a staff of 7 people, but he was filling out an insurance application himself. And I kind of laughed and I said, I think I know why you're filling out that insurance app yourself. He said, I haven't touched an app in 2 years, but the target premium on that one app was over $600,000. He's like, I don't want to mess this one up. So, you focus on, with the CPA relationship, making sure at the very beginning, everything is done perfectly. Okay, so thanks. I can't hand off the specialist working with the client directly, or should I be involved? Depends on the client, depends on the specialist, the number of moving pieces there are. Ideally, we're working on multiple things with each client. And that's part of like the quarterbacking in a way. So, ideally, you and the CPA are sitting down and you're looking at, okay, client doesn't have a buy sell, so we need to create a buy sell with business attorney. We need to fund the buy sell with insurance. Client also needs some type of tax planning. So we need to consider a qualified plan or any other type of non-qualified plan, but that would still have some positive tax ramifications. We also need to look at the client owns commercial real estate. So we're looking at cost set. So we've got multiple things going on. And it's not just like, here, let me hand off the client to this specialist and then the specialist and the client will work together. But it's rather like what we're being paid for and paid well for is making sure that everything is done perfectly, it's orchestrated well, questions are being answered, everything's taking the next step. Yeah. So, yeah, I wouldn't just think you're handing off a client, because that's really the referral model. The referral model is built on like, here, I've got so much going on. Let me take this, hand that off. Now I'm free. Take this, hand that off. It's like, rather than doing that 100 times, just slow down, focus on doing less, but working with better clients with more moving pieces. So rather than 100, we're working on 10, but each one of those 10 are 50 times as valuable as one of those 100. Yeah, I see a couple of people. Larry's saying we can't hear you, lost audio. don't know if anybody else is having any audio problems. No, second time. Sorry, Larry. Other people are saying audio's fine. All right. Thanks. Good. I'm going to wrap it up. I don't see any other questions. Very good comments today. Wednesday, so what do we have? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Pacific, we'll do a client information questionnaire case study review call. We've got 3 case studies to do with advisors that have come in. And that link is available in the Facebook group. What else? I think that's it for now. So hope to see many of you tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, have a great afternoon. Any questions that come up, post them in the Facebook group, and we'll look forward to getting to those as quick as possible. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.